Welcome. Today we will learn how to run a free and total SO2 sample using the aspiration oxidation method. For that we will need sodium hydroxide 0.01 normal, phosphoric acid 25%, 0.3% hydrogen peroxide, SO2 mixed indicator solution, our wine sample, pipettes, beakers and droppers. We start by removing the pear-shaped flask from the apparatus. We add 10 milliliters of hydrogen peroxide 0.3% to the pear-shaped flask using a pipette. We continue by adding a few drops of mixed SO2 indicator. To that, we add 1 or 2 drops of sodium hydroxide 0.01 normal, just enough that the color changes to green. We reattach our pear-shaped flask to the SO2 apparatus. Next, we measure 20 milliliters of our wine sample. Then we pour our sample into the sample flask of the apparatus. To that, we add 10 milliliters of phosphoric acid, 25%. Make sure you use a different pipette than the one you used for hydrogen peroxide. Immediately after the acid addition, turn your aeration machine on for 10 minutes and make sure the airflow is at 1 liter per minute. Continue to aerate for the whole 10 minutes. Once the aeration process is complete, remove the pear-shaped flask from the apparatus. You are now ready to titrate your free SO2 sample. Make a note of the starting volume of sodium hydroxide solution in your burette. Then proceed with your titration. Titrate carefully until the color of the solution in the flask turns green. Record the end volume of sodium hydroxide in your burette. It is now time for the free SO2 calculation. The formula is simple. You multiply the volume of sodium hydroxide used by 16. In our case, 1.1 milliliters sodium hydroxide used multiplied by 16 equals 17.6 parts per million free SO2. It is now time for the second part of the analysis. In order to determine the bound SO2 and ultimately the total SO2 in our wine, we continue to use our previously prepared sample. After thoroughly cleaning the pear-shaped flask, we add to it again 10 milliliters of 0.3% hydrogen peroxide. To that, we add a few drops of SO2 mixed indicator. Notice the olive green color of the solution, which indicates there is no need to add sodium hydroxide to it. Reconnect the pear-shaped flask to the apparatus. In order to liberate the bound SO2, we will need to heat up our sample using a Bunsen burner. At this point, make sure cold water is running through your condenser and draining in the sink. Once your sample starts boiling, turn on the aspiration apparatus and set it for 15 minutes. Once the aeration interval is up, make sure your AccuFlow is off, then remove the pear-shaped flask and titrate the solution within it. Remember to record the starting volume of sodium hydroxide in your burette. Carefully titrate until the solution changes color to olive green. Record the end volume of sodium hydroxide in your burette. In our case, it is 4.5 milliliters. For calculations, subtract the start volume from the end volume and multiply the result by 16. This is the amount of bound SO2 in your wine sample. In order to find out the total SO2, we need to add the bound value to the free value. In our case, the bound is 54.4 parts per million, the free is 17.6 parts per million, so the total SO2 in our sample is 72 parts per million. And this is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it and found it useful. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.